They were all standing around me when they said it. You won't survive without us. Those words were not whispered. They were not said with care. They were said loud, sharp, and clear, like a final judgment. I remember the room going quiet after that, as if even the walls were waiting to see if I would break. I stood there with my small bag in my hand, my heart beating so fast it hurt. My legs felt weak, but my face stayed calm. No one noticed my hands shaking. No one noticed the tears burning behind my eyes. They thought I was nothing without them. But what they did not know, what they could never imagine, was that I was already halfway out the door. Before I tell you how I got to that moment, pause with me for just 1 second. If you enjoy real-life emotional stories like this, stories about pain, strength, and unexpected courage, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Also, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know who is here with me right now. Now let me take you back. My name is not important yet. What matters is that I was a woman who spent her whole life believing other people knew better than me. I believed that love meant staying quiet. I believed that family meant enduring pain. And I believed that walking away was the same as failing. That belief nearly destroyed me. The day they told me I wouldn't survive without them did not start with shouting. It started like any other normal morning. The sun came through the window softly. The house smelled like coffee. Everything looked peaceful on the outside. But inside me, a storm was already building. I had lived in that house for years. I cooked there. I cleaned there. I cried there, mostly at night when no one could hear me. Every decision I made had to pass through someone else first. What I wore, where I went, who I spoke to, even how I laughed. Whenever I tried to speak up, they would smile and say, "We're just trying to help you." Help. That word became a cage. The first time they told me I needed them was years ago. I had wanted to take a small job outside the home. Nothing big. Just something to make my own money. I remember the way they laughed. "Why?" one of them said. "We take care of everything. You wouldn't last a week on your own." Everyone nodded. I nodded too. I felt small, but I agreed with them. I always did. That was how it worked. They spoke. I listened. Over time, their words became my thoughts. When something went wrong, I blamed myself. When I felt unhappy, I told myself I was ungrateful. When I dreamed of more, I felt ashamed. They reminded me often of all they had done for me. Every meal, every roof, every favor came with a reminder. Remember, without us, where would you be? I stopped asking myself that question. I already knew the answer they wanted. Nowhere. Or so they thought. The night before everything changed, I couldn't sleep. My chest felt tight. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. For the first time in years, a quiet thought came to me. What if they are wrong? That thought scared me more than anything else. Because if they were wrong, then I had been lying to myself for a very long time. The next morning, I found an old envelope hidden at the bottom of a drawer. Inside it were documents I had forgotten about. Things I had signed long ago. Proof of something I never knew I still had. Options. My hands trembled as I read. My heart pounded. This small discovery did not fix my life. It did not make me brave overnight. But it lit a tiny fire inside me. And once a fire starts, it is hard to put out. I became quieter after that. Not weak quiet. Careful quiet. I listened more. I watched more. I noticed how they spoke to me when they thought I was not paying attention. I noticed how quick they were to remind me of my place. Then came the day I asked one simple question. What would happen if I left? The room changed instantly. Faces hardened. Voices rose. Fear showed, but not mine. Theirs. They told me I was selfish. They told me I was confused. They told me I would come crawling back. And then someone said it. You wouldn't survive without us. That was the moment I mentioned at the beginning. The moment that split my life in two. Before and after. I looked at the people who had controlled my world for so long. I looked at the door. I looked at my bag. My mouth opened, but before I could speak, one of them stepped closer and said something that made my blood run cold. If you walk out now, they warned, don't expect to ever come back. I tightened my grip on the bag. The room stayed silent after those words. If you walk out now, don't expect to ever come back. They said it like a threat, like a curse they were throwing at my back. They believed fear would stop me the way it always had before. For a moment, it almost worked. My feet felt glued to the floor. My heart was beating so loudly I was sure they could hear it. My mind raced with every terrible thought they had planted in me over the years. Where will you go? How will you eat? Who will help you? What if you fail? I looked at their faces. Some were angry. Some were calm. Some were watching closely, waiting for me to shrink again. Waiting for me to apologize. Waiting for me to say, you're right. I can't do this. That was the role I had played for so long. But something was different this time. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something new. Something stronger. A quiet anger I had ignored for years. I realized something in that moment. They were not scared that I would fail. They were scared that I might succeed. I took one slow step toward the door. Gasps filled the room. Don't be dramatic, someone said. You'll be back by tonight. Another voice followed quickly. You're making a mistake. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I did something that shocked even me. I smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was a tired smile. The kind you give when you finally understand the truth. I'm not leaving because I hate you, I said softly. I'm leaving because I don't recognize myself anymore. They laughed again. That laugh. The one that made me feel small every time. You, one of them said. On your own. You won't last. I opened the door. The sound of it creaking felt louder than all their voices combined. As I stepped outside, the air hit my face. It felt cold. Fresh. Real. My hands shook, but my legs moved. One step. Then another. Behind me, someone shouted my name. I did not turn around. The door slammed shut. And just like that, I was out. The world outside felt strange. Too big. Too open. I stood there for a second, holding my bag like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Cars passed. People walked by, laughing, talking, living lives that had nothing to do with me. I had never felt so alone. And I had never felt so free. I walked without a clear plan. Each step felt like jumping into darkness. My mind kept telling me to go back. That it was safer to be unhappy where I was known than scared where no one cared. But then I remembered the envelope. The documents. The proof that I was not as helpless as they said. I reached a small bus stop and sat down. My knees felt weak. I finally let the tears fall. Not loud crying. Just silent tears rolling down my face as I stared at the ground. A woman sitting nearby looked at me with concern. Are you okay? She asked. I almost said yes out of habit. Instead, I shook my head. No, I whispered. But I will be. Those words surprised me. I had never said them before. The bus arrived. I got on without knowing exactly where I was going. I paid with money I had saved quietly over time. Small amounts hidden away, just in case. I used to feel guilty for saving it. Now, it felt like survival. As the bus moved, my phone vibrated in my hand. A message. Then another. Then another. I didn't open them at first. I stared at the screen, watching the notifications pile up like stones on my chest. Finally, I opened the first one. You're being ridiculous. The next one came fast. You'll regret this. Then another. Don't embarrass yourself. Come back. My hands shook again. My old self wanted to reply, to explain, to beg for understanding. I locked my phone. I leaned my head against the window and watched the streets change. Big houses turned into small ones. Busy roads turned into quiet streets. Every mile felt like I was shedding a layer of who I used to be. But fear followed me closely. What if they were right? What if I failed? What if I ended up with nothing? Those questions hit me hard when I got off the bus and stood in front of a small building. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't warm-looking. But it was a place I could afford, for now. I walked inside and spoke to the woman at the desk. My voice cracked, but I spoke clearly. I filled out the forms. I handed over the documents from the envelope. The woman looked at them, then at me. You know you're entitled to this, right? She said. I blinked. I am. She nodded. Yes. You have been for a long time. My chest tightened. All those years. All those times they told me I had nothing. All those moments I believed them. I had almost given up what was mine. I walked into my small room later that day. One bed. One chair. One window. It was quiet. Too quiet. I sat on the bed and laughed softly. This was it. No one yelling. No one watching. No one reminding me how useless I was. Just me. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. I stared at the name on the screen. My heart dropped. I knew that voice. I knew that tone before I even answered. I hesitated. Then I picked up. What have you done? The voice said, low and dangerous. I swallowed hard. And that was when they said something that made me realize walking away had only just begun. What have you done? The voice on the other end of the line was calm, but I knew that calm. It was the kind that came before anger. The kind that made my stomach twist into knots. I sat on the edge of the bed and held the phone tightly. The room felt smaller all of a sudden, like the walls were leaning in to listen. I left, I said quietly. There was a short laugh. Not a funny one. A sharp one. Left where? The voice asked. You can't just leave. Those words hit me hard. You can't just leave. I had heard that sentence my whole life, even when it wasn't spoken out loud. It was always there, hanging over me like a rule written in stone. I did leave, I said again, my voice shaking. I'm safe. There was a pause. Then the tone changed. Safe, they said. You don't even know what that means without us. I closed my eyes. My free hand dug into the blanket. I could feel old fear trying to crawl back into my chest, telling me to apologize, to explain myself better, to make them understand. But something stopped me. For the first time, I realized something important. They were not asking if I was okay. They were checking if they still had control. I have to go, I said softly. You're not hanging up on me, the voice snapped. Do you have any idea how foolish you look right now? I took a deep breath. My chest hurt as I spoke. I'm not foolish, I said. I'm tired. Silence. Real silence this time. Then the voice returned, colder than before. You're making us look bad. That was it. Not we're worried. Not we miss you. Not come home safely. Just you're making us look bad. Something inside me cracked open. I spent years making you look good, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. At my own expense. They scoffed. You chose that. No, I replied. You taught me that. My heart raced. I had never spoken to them like this before. Each word felt like stepping onto thin ice, but I kept going. I'm not coming back tonight, I said. Or tomorrow. You'll run out of money, they said quickly. You always do. I looked around the small room. The bed. The chair. The quiet. I'm learning, I said. I don't need much. The voice turned sharp again. You think the world is kind? You think strangers will care about you? I remembered the woman at the bus stop. Her gentle voice. Her concern. Some do, I said. The line went dead. They hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after that. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. The fear was still there, but so was relief. They could no longer reach me with their words alone. That night was hard. The quiet that felt peaceful earlier now felt heavy. Every sound made me jump. My mind replayed old memories. Times I was told I was nothing, times I believed it. I barely slept. In the morning, sunlight filled the room. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. I sat up slowly and whispered to myself, "You did it." The words felt strange in my mouth. I spent the day walking. Just walking. I needed to feel the ground under my feet. I needed to remind myself that the world was still turning, even without them controlling every part of my life. I passed shops, parks, people sitting on benches. Everyone looked so normal, like they belonged to themselves. That's when it hit me. I didn't know how to belong to myself. That realization hurt more than their insults. Later that afternoon, I went to a small office building I had been given directions to. My palms were sweaty as I stepped inside. I felt like a child pretending to be an adult. The woman behind the desk smiled kindly. "Can I help you?" she asked. I nodded. I was told to come here. She looked at my papers and nodded. "Yes. Please have a seat." As I waited, my phone buzzed again. A message. "You're breaking this family apart." I closed my eyes. When I was called in, I sat across from another woman who spoke slowly and clearly. She explained things I had never been told before. Rights. Support. Choices. You don't need anyone's permission to live your life, she said gently. I felt tears rise again. No one had ever said that to me. As I left the building, my phone buzzed once more. This time, the message was different. "If you don't come back, don't expect help when things fall apart." I stared at the screen. Then I typed something I had never typed before. "I will figure it out." My finger hovered over the send button. My heart pounded. I pressed send. Almost immediately, the phone rang again. I didn't answer. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something that scared me even more than being alone. They were not done with me yet. And I knew the next move they made would not be kind. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. It was not fear. Not exactly. It was the feeling you get when you know something is coming, but you don't know from where, or how hard it will hit. I sat up slowly and listened to the silence. No voices arguing. No footsteps outside my door. No one calling my name to demand something from me. Just quiet. I should have felt safe. Instead, I felt exposed. For years, chaos had been my normal. Now that it was gone, my body didn't know how to rest. I made a small cup of tea with shaky hands and sat by the window, watching people walk past. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to go, someone waiting for them. I had neither. Or so it felt. My phone buzzed on the table. I froze. Slowly, I reached for it. A message. "I hope you slept well. You'll need the energy." My heart dropped. There was no anger in that message. No insults. No threats. That scared me more than anything else. I didn't reply. I set the phone face down and tried to breathe. My mind raced through every possible meaning behind those words. What are they planning? Who are they talking to? What do they know that I don't? I decided I would not sit and wait. Waiting had always been how they controlled me. I got dressed and went out. The city felt different in the morning. Brighter. Louder. I walked with no clear direction, just the need to move. With every step, I reminded myself that I was allowed to exist without permission. I stopped at a small cafe and ordered something simple. When the server smiled and asked my name for the cup, I hesitated. Then I gave it. Hearing my name spoken kindly by a stranger felt strange and healing at the same time. As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. I didn't recognize the number. My stomach twisted. I answered. Hello. There was a pause. Then a voice I didn't expect. It was calm. Too calm. This is just a courtesy call, the voice said. We heard you've been having some difficulties. My grip tightened on the phone. Who is this? I asked. I'm calling on behalf of your family, the voice replied. They're very concerned about you. Concerned. The word sounded fake coming from them. I'm fine, I said quickly. I don't need help. There was another pause. Well, the voice continued, they mentioned you may be confused, under stress, not thinking clearly. My heart began to race. They said you might be struggling to manage on your own, the voice added. We just want to make sure you're safe. Safe. That word again. I am safe, I said firmly. And I didn't ask for this call. The voice softened. Sometimes families step in when someone can't see what's happening to them. That was when I understood. This was not concern. This was control, wearing a polite mask. I don't give permission for anyone to speak on my behalf, I said, my voice shaking but strong. Please don't call me again. The silence on the line stretched. Then the voice said quietly, we'll note that. The call ended. I sat there staring at my coffee, my hands trembling so badly I almost spilled it. They had taken the next step. They were trying to make me look unstable. All the times they called me emotional, difficult, weak. They were using those words now. I left the cafe and walked quickly, my heart pounding. Every stranger felt like a threat. Every ringing phone felt like danger. By the time I reached my room, my chest hurt. I locked the door and slid down against it, breathing hard. I'm not crazy, I whispered to myself. I'm not. My phone buzzed again. A message from them. See. The world is already noticing you can't handle this. Tears streamed down my face. For a brief moment, I almost believed them. Then I remembered the woman at the office. Her calm voice. Her certainty. You don't need anyone's permission to live your life. I wiped my face and stood up. I would not let them rewrite my story. That afternoon, I went back to the office. My legs shook as I explained what had happened. The calls. The messages. The fear. The woman listened carefully. You're doing the right thing, she said. And you're not alone in this. Those words felt like oxygen. She explained my options. Steps I could take. Ways to protect myself. For the first time I felt prepared. But when I returned to my room that evening, something was waiting for me. An envelope. No return address. Just my name written on the front. In handwriting I knew too well. My heart pounded as I picked it up. Inside were copies of old records. Private things. Personal details they had kept. And a short note. We know everything about you. Remember that. I dropped the papers as fear flooded my body. They were not just watching anymore. They were reminding me how deep their reach went. And in that moment, I realized walking away had made me a target. I didn't sleep at all that night. The envelope lay on the table like it was alive. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The handwriting. The words. We know everything about you. It felt like a hand around my throat. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. How far will they go? When morning came, I felt hollow. My body moved, but my mind lagged behind, heavy and slow. I made tea I didn't drink. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall until the light shifted. For the first time since I left, Doubt crept in quietly. Maybe they were right. Maybe the world really was too dangerous without them. That thought scared me more than the envelope itself, because it sounded like my own voice. I picked up my phone and read the messages again. The warnings. The guilt. The threats wrapped in concern. Then I did something I had never done before. I didn't delete them. I saved them. Every message. Every missed call. Every voicemail. It felt strange, like collecting proof of a crime that had never been named. But deep down, I knew I would need it. By midday, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, a message came through. You're making this worse than it needs to be. My stomach twisted. I didn't respond. Minutes later, another message arrived. If you come back now, we can forget all this. Forget. As if fear could be erased like a chalkboard. I stood up and paced the room. My legs felt restless, my thoughts spinning. I realized something important then. They didn't want me back because they loved me. They wanted me back because I was easier to control inside the cage. I grabbed my bag and left the room. I needed air. I needed noise. I needed to remind myself that the world was bigger than their voices. I walked until my feet hurt. I passed a small park and sat on a bench, watching children play. Their laughter was loud and free. It made my chest ache. I wondered when I had stopped laughing like that. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail. I hesitated, then pressed play. The voice was soft, sad, almost loving. We're worried about you, it said. You're not yourself. Please come home. We forgive you. I felt my eyes burn. Forgive me. For what? For wanting to breathe? I ended the call and whispered, no. The word felt weak at first. Then stronger. No. That afternoon, I noticed something else. People around me didn't know my past. They didn't know my mistakes. They didn't see me as fragile or dependent. To them, I was just another woman sitting on a bench. And that felt powerful. When I returned to my room, there was another envelope waiting. This one was thicker. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were photos. Old photos. Pictures of me taken without my knowledge. Walking. Sitting. Talking to people. My chest tightened. They were watching me. A note fell out of the envelope. You can't hide from family. I dropped the photos and backed away like they might bite me. Fear rushed in fast and hard. My mind went blank. Then anger followed. Hot. Sharp. Clear. I picked up the phone and called the office. My voice shook as I spoke, but I didn't stop. They listened. They took notes. They told me this was serious. For the first time, someone said the word out loud. This is harassment. That word hit me like a wave. Harassment. Not love. Not concern. Not protection. Harassment. That night, I locked the door and sat on the floor with my back against the bed. I hugged my knees to my chest. I thought about all the years I stayed quiet. All the times I defended them. All the times I told myself it was normal. It wasn't normal. It never was. My phone buzzed again. A new message. You're forcing us to take stronger steps. My heart skipped. Stronger steps. I stared at the screen, my fingers cold. I knew then that this was no longer just about leaving. It was about surviving what came after. And whatever they were planning next, it would change everything. I read the message again and again. You're forcing us to take stronger steps. Each time, it felt heavier. I sat on the floor for a long time, my back pressed against the bed, my phone resting in my lap. My thoughts ran in circles. My body felt small again, like it used to when I was trapped in that house, waiting for the next command, the next rule, the next punishment dressed up as love. But this time, I was not there. I was here. And here I had choices. I stood up slowly and began to clean the room. Not because it was dirty, but because my hands needed something to do. I folded clothes that were already folded. I wiped a table that had no dust. I needed control over something. Anything. As I moved, I thought. What were stronger steps? Calling more people? Lying to authorities? Showing up in person? The last thought made my stomach drop. I checked the lock on the door twice. Then 3 times. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a picture. A photo of the building I was staying in. Taken from across the street. My breath caught in my throat. They knew where I was. Fear rushed through me like cold water. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. My first instinct was to run. To grab my bag and disappear. But where would I go? How long could I keep running? I forced myself to sit down. Panic would not help me now. I remembered what the woman at the office had said. Document everything. So I took screenshots. I saved the photo. I wrote down the time. Then my phone rang. I stared at it, my heart pounding. I answered. What do you want? I asked, my voice barely steady. You see, the voice said calmly. We're just trying to protect you. Protect. That word again. You're scaring me, I said. A small laugh came through the phone. You scare yourself. Anger flared in my chest. You took pictures of where I live, I said. That's not protection. You wouldn't need protection if you came back, they replied. This could all stop today. I closed my eyes. They wanted me afraid. They wanted me to believe the world was dangerous and they were the only safety. I'm not coming back, I said. The voice hardened. Then don't say we didn't warn you. The call ended. I sat there in silence, my heart racing. Every sound outside made me flinch. Footsteps. Doors. Voices. I barely slept that night. Every time I drifted off, I dreamed of knocking. Loud. Angry knocking. I woke up sweating, my heart racing. When morning came, I felt exhausted but clear. This could not continue. I gathered everything, screenshots, messages, envelopes, photos, and went straight to the office. My legs felt heavy, but my steps were determined. I told them everything. The woman listened carefully. Her face grew serious. This is escalation, she said. And it's not okay. Those words grounded me. She explained next steps. Safety plans. Boundaries. She spoke about things I had never thought I was allowed to do. You can say no, she said. And no is enough. I nodded, tears sliding down my face. 4 years, my no had been ignored. That afternoon, I changed my number. It felt terrifying and freeing. Like cutting a cord that had been wrapped around my chest for years. For a few hours, the silence was peaceful. Then it happened. A knock. 3 sharp knocks on the door. My heart stopped. I stood frozen, my mind screaming. Don't open it. Don't move. Another knock. Louder this time. Open the door, a voice called out. A familiar voice. My legs felt weak. I stepped back slowly. I know you're in there, the voice continued. Don't make this difficult. Tears filled my eyes. This was the moment I feared most. They had come in person. I didn't answer. The knocking grew harder. I'm just trying to help you, the voice said, irritation slipping through. I backed away until I hit the wall. My hands were shaking. My breath came fast and shallow. Then the voice changed. If you don't open this door, they said quietly, you'll regret it. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't the scared woman they left behind. I picked up my phone with trembling hands and called for help. My voice shook as I spoke, but I spoke. Within minutes, the knocking stopped. Silence filled the hallway. I slid down the wall and cried harder than I ever had before. Not from fear. From relief. They had crossed a line they could not uncross. And I knew this confrontation was only the beginning. The hallway stayed quiet long after the knocking stopped. I didn't move. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, my knees pulled close to my chest, listening to my own breathing. Every sound felt loud inside my head. My hands were still shaking, even though the danger had passed, for now. I kept thinking the door would shake again. It didn't. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Slowly, my heart stopped racing so hard. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my shirt and forced myself to stand. I was still here. They didn't win. That thought felt fragile, like glass, but it was real. Later that day, I was asked to explain everything again. What happened? What was said? How long it had been going on? Each question felt heavy, but I answered them one by one. Speaking the truth out loud hurt. But it also made the story clearer. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't weak. What they were doing was wrong. When I returned to my room that evening, it felt different. Smaller. Temporary. Like a place I had outgrown overnight. I sat on the bed and stared at the door, the same door they had knocked on earlier. 4 years, that door had been my dream. Now it was my shield. My phone stayed silent. No messages. No calls. No threats. That silence should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me nervous. I knew them too well. They never stayed quiet unless they were planning something. The next morning, I woke up early. My body felt tired, but my mind was sharp. I packed my bag slowly, carefully. Not to run, but to be ready. I had learned something important. Freedom requires preparation. I left the building and walked toward the bus stop, checking behind me more than once. Every shadow felt suspicious. Every passing car made my chest tighten. When I reached the stop, I sat down and tried to focus on my breathing. In, out. A man sitting nearby glanced at me, then looked away. He didn't know my story. He didn't know my fear. That was a strange comfort. The bus arrived. I got on and took a seat near the back. As it pulled away, my phone vibrated. A message. From a number I didn't recognize. You can't hide forever. My fingers went cold. I didn't reply. Another message followed. People are starting to ask questions. My stomach dropped. What questions? And who were they asking? I realized then that they were changing tactics again. If fear didn't work, they would use shame. They would tell their version of the story. I imagined the words they would use. She's unstable. She's confused. She needs us. Those lies had always worked before. But this time, I was not there to defend them. I was here to defend myself. When I reached my destination, I went straight to the office again. The woman looked at me with concern as soon as she saw my face. They're not stopping, are they? She asked gently. I shook my head. She nodded slowly. Then we take the next step. Those words made my heart skip. Next step. She explained what it meant. More protection. More distance. Clear boundaries written down, not just spoken. You're allowed to choose who has access to you, she said. Even if they're family. Family. That word used to mean everything to me. Now it felt heavy. By the time I left, my hands were steady. My path wasn't easy, but it was clearer. When I returned later that afternoon, something else had changed. The front desk attendant stopped me. Someone was here earlier asking for you, she said. My heart jumped. Who? She shook her head. They didn't leave a name. Just said they were worried. Worried. Always that word. They were told not to come back, the attendant added. I thought you should know. I thanked her and walked to my room, my legs feeling weak. They had tried again. They would keep trying. That night, I sat on the bed and thought about my past. About the girl I used to be. The woman who believed survival meant obedience. If she could see me now, sitting alone, scared but standing, what would she think? I whispered into the quiet. I'm doing this for you. My phone buzzed one last time before midnight. Another unknown number. Another message. You think you've won. You haven't. I stared at the screen for a long time. They were right about one thing. This wasn't over. But they were wrong about something much bigger. I was no longer afraid to walk away again, no matter how many times it took. The message stayed on my screen long after I locked the phone. You think you've won. You haven't. I repeated it in my head until the words lost their sharpness. Fear still lingered, but something else had taken its place. Clarity. They were no longer reacting. They were escalating. That meant one thing. They felt control slipping. I slept lightly, waking at every sound. When morning came, my body ached, but my mind was steady. I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Her eyes looked older, but they also looked awake. I packed my things carefully, not in panic this time, but with intention. I folded my clothes neatly. I placed my documents in order. I took photos of everything important and saved them in more than one place. I was done being unprepared. When I stepped outside, the air felt sharp against my skin. I walked with my head up, even though my heart was beating fast. Fear no longer sat in front of me. It walked behind me. And I refused to turn around. At the office, the woman greeted me with a look of concern and determination. They tried to reach out again, she asked. Yes, I said. Different numbers. Different messages. She nodded slowly. That's common when control is challenged. She explained what they could do next, and what I could do to stay ahead of it. She spoke clearly, without sugarcoating anything. They may try to force contact, she said. They may show up again. Or they may try to involve others. My stomach tightened. Involving others how? I asked. She met my eyes. By telling their version of your story. I swallowed hard. That afternoon, I found out just how fast lies can travel. I stepped into a small grocery store near where I was staying. As I reached for a basket, I felt eyes on me. Two women whispered to each other near the produce section. I told myself I was imagining it. Then one of them said my name. Quietly. But clearly. My heart dropped. I turned and looked at them. They went silent and looked away. I left the store without buying anything. Outside, my hands shook as I sat on a bench. They had started talking. I checked my phone. Missed calls. Messages. Not just from them, but from people I hadn't heard from in years. Are you okay? I heard something worrying. Maybe you should go back and fix this. My chest felt tight. They were turning concern into pressure. I realized something then. Walking away was only the first step. Staying away would be the real fight. That evening, I returned to my room and found another note slipped under the door. Short. Simple. You're embarrassing yourself. I tore it in half. Then into smaller pieces. For years, embarrassment had kept me silent. Afraid of what people would think. Afraid of being misunderstood. But now, I was tired of living for appearances. I made a decision that night. I would stop hiding. The next day, I did something terrifying. I told the truth. Not to everyone. Not online. Not loudly. But to the right people. I sat in a small room and spoke about the control. The threats. The fear. The way love had been used like a leash. My voice shook. My hands trembled. But I didn't stop. The people listening didn't interrupt. They didn't judge. They didn't tell me to forgive or forget. They believed me. That changed something deep inside my chest. When I left that room, I felt lighter than I had in years. That night, my phone buzzed again. A message. You're turning people against us. I stared at the screen. No, I whispered. You did that yourselves. Another message followed. You think strangers care more than family? I didn't answer. Because for the first time, I knew the truth. Family is not who controls you. Family is who lets you breathe. As I lay in bed that night, my fear felt smaller. Still there, but quieter. I knew what was coming next. If they couldn't pull me back with fear, if they couldn't shame me into silence, they would try one last thing. And whatever it was, it would force a final choice. The last thing they had left was desperation. I felt it before I saw it. That heavy pressure in the air, like the calm right before a storm breaks. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, it means something is gathering strength. I woke up to dozens of missed calls. Not from unknown numbers this time. From people I knew. My chest tightened as I scrolled. Messages filled my screen. Please call me. What's going on? They're saying something serious. You need to explain yourself. My hands began to shake. I knew. I didn't even have to ask. They had made their move. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to my heartbeat. My mouth felt dry. Slowly, I called the first number on the list. The call barely rang before it was answered. What have you done? The voice asked, sharp and breathless. I closed my eyes. What are they saying? I asked quietly. There was a pause. Then the words came out fast, tangled with worry. They say you're not well. That you left without telling anyone. That you're being influenced. That you might hurt yourself. My stomach dropped. That was it. The strongest weapon they had. They weren't just attacking my character anymore. They were attacking my sanity. I'm fine, I said quickly. I'm safe. I chose to leave. But they're scared, the voice said. They say you're refusing help. Refusing help. I felt anger rise, hot and sharp. I'm refusing control, I said. There's a difference. The line went quiet. I don't know who to believe, the person finally said. That hurt more than the threats. When the call ended, I stared at the wall, breathing hard. My mind raced. They were building a story. A dangerous one. If enough people believed it, I could lose everything I had just started to build. My safety, my voice, my freedom. I grabbed my bag and left immediately. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay still. On the street, I felt eyes on me again. Whispers. Side glances. People who used to smile now looked uncertain. Their lies were working. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized too well. I hesitated. Then I answered. You've gone too far, the voice said calmly. Too calmly. We're trying to protect you. You're lying about me, I said, my voice shaking with anger. We're telling the truth as we see it, they replied. You're confused. You're acting out of character. I finally have a character, I snapped. You just don't control it anymore. There was a long pause. Then the voice softened. We don't want to do this, they said. But you're leaving us no choice. My heart pounded. No choice for what? I asked. You know, the voice said quietly. We can't just let you destroy yourself. The call ended. My hands went cold. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, people passing me like I didn't exist. Destroy yourself. That phrase echoed in my head. They were preparing something big. Something official. Something I couldn't ignore. I rushed back to the office, my breath uneven, my mind racing. I told them everything. The calls, the rumors, the words being used. The woman's face hardened. This is serious, she said. They're trying to take your choice away. What does that mean? I asked, though part of me already knew. She took a breath. It means they may try to decide for you. My chest tightened painfully. Decide for me. I had spent my whole life fighting for one thing. The right to choose. As I left the building later that evening, my phone buzzed one more time. A final message. We've reported our concerns. Someone will be checking on you soon. My knees nearly gave out. I stood there under the fading light, my future suddenly fragile again. They were coming. And I didn't know if the truth would reach them before the lies did. The knock came just after sunset. 3 steady knocks. Not loud. Not angry. Official. My heart slammed against my ribs. For a second, I couldn't move. The message from earlier replayed in my head. Someone will be checking on you soon. I took a deep breath and stood. My legs felt weak, but my mind was clear in a way it had never been before. I opened the door. 2 people stood there. Calm faces. Clipboards. Gentle voices. We're here to check on you, one of them said. We received a report that you might be in danger. I nodded slowly. I understand. They looked surprised. Usually, people panic at moments like this. I didn't. Because for once, I was ready. I invited them in. We sat down. They asked their questions carefully. How are you feeling? Are you safe here? Did you leave your family willingly? I answered everything. Slowly. Clearly. Honestly. Yes, I'm safe. Yes, I chose to leave. No, I am not a danger to myself. Then I did something that changed everything. I showed them the truth. The messages. The calls. The photos. The notes. The threats wrapped in fake concern. I watched their expressions change as they read. The confusion turned into focus. The focus turned into understanding. One of them looked up at me and said something I will never forget. You've been trying to protect yourself. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. Yes, I whispered. For the first time in my life. They asked one final question. Do you want to go back? I didn't hesitate. No. That single word felt heavier and freer than anything I had ever said. They closed their folders. They stood up. You've done the right thing by speaking up, one of them said. We'll handle this from here. When they left, I closed the door and leaned against it. My whole body shook as the weight of it all finally lifted. They had tried everything. Fear. Guilt. Shame. Lies. And still, I was standing. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in years. No nightmares. No knocking. No voices telling me who I was allowed to be. Just silence. And peace. In the days that followed, the noise faded. The messages stopped. The whispers died down. People began to see the truth. Not the story they were told, but the strength I carried. I started over slowly. One step at a time. I learned how to choose my own mornings. How to spend my own money. How to say no without apologizing. I learned that survival is not about staying. Sometimes, survival is about walking away. They said I wouldn't survive without them. They were wrong. I didn't just survive. I became free. And if you're watching this right now, feeling trapped, feeling small, feeling like you need permission to live your own life, listen to me closely. You don't. If this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more powerful stories like this. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know you're here. Because somewhere out there, someone else needs to hear this too. And sometimes, walking away is how life finally begins.